I would like to introduce our presenter today, Deneen Powell, Director of the Path to Positive Communities program at ecoAmerica. She essentially leads a national effort to engage communities and promote climate action based on positive, values-oriented climate communication. So you can find her more detailed bio elsewhere, and I'll let her introduce herself with that. But yeah, Deneen, take it away.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. As Miles said, my name is Deneen Powell, and I am the Path to Positive Communities Director for ecoAmerica. Before I begin, I make my home near Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I reside on the unceded land of the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Algonquin tribes. I ask you to join me in acknowledging this region's diverse and vibrant Native peoples who show strength and resilience against the backdrop of ongoing oppression. Let this acknowledgement demonstrate our commitment to dismantling the ongoing legacies of colonialism. I am really new to ecoAmerica, having started my new role in July of this year, and my previous role was as the CEO of the African American Leadership Alliance of Milwaukee. And before that, I was the executive director for Groundwork Milwaukee for nearly 6 years. My personal and professional focus has been on social, environmental, and climate justice, as well as JEDI work, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I also focus on conservation and protecting our wild spaces. Tackling the issue of the climate crisis and equity in communities can seem very daunting. Next slide, please. And the slide after, please. One more. Okay. I have 5 objectives for our discussion here today, to share a few lessons that I've learned here as the director of the Path to Positive Communities, and also my work in climate advocacy. First is the challenge of climate change on the frontline communities, and why climate justice is important to solving the climate crisis. Next, I'd like to share a little bit about our local action national purpose framework for delivering information and resources. And then I'll share some examples of communication steps to drive community engagement. Lastly, I'll offer a few suggestions for integrating climate and equity into your current work. A little bit about myself and why I work in this field. I have to say, it's obviously not common to see a woman of color in this field, but my story can exemplify the need to provide urban kids with wilderness and outdoor experiences. My mother spent our winter evenings beavering away on her typewriter, which sort of dates me, I guess, but she would apply for scholarships, and this resulted in my attending a local camp a few weeks every summer for years, from the time I was probably about 8 to 18. And even beyond that, I'd say it went further because I became a camp counselor after I graduated. My experiences there were magical, as most kids, I think, at camp are. The summer nights filled with singing and bonfires and starry skies, and the days filled with crafting and hiking and canoeing and all those fun things that we learn at camp. The thing is that the summer activities like hikes were something that were almost seen as a rite of passage for us at the camp that I attended. The first time I climbed our local camp mountain, it was nearly a spiritual experience for me. The view of the lake, the rivers, the valley below, was just breathtaking and inspiring. And at the time, I was probably about 12. I remember thinking at that time that I wanted to do something where my life, that this was incorporated into my life in some way, shape, or form. Didn't know what it was back then. So move on. I spent years taking other kids up that mountain or that hill to see that beautiful view. And I got to have that experience over and over again, which was very exciting for me. And fast forward 3 decades later, I went up that hill again with my son. And I remember very distinctly his intake of breath when he saw that view for the first time. And he turned around and said, "Oh, Mom, thank you so much for bringing me up here." And it was at that time that I decided it was time to really pursue my passion, which was the environment and conservation. And so I went back to school and worked on a global sustainability certificate program, and then started working for nonprofits. Now, I did focus pretty much on conservation and environment in the beginning, but slowly my experiences pushed me in the direction of climate. So why climate? And specifically, why focus on communities impacted by the climate crisis? Well, I can't think of a more important work right now that needs to be done. Climate change is a threat to everyone's physical and mental health and our air, food, water, and shelter. The climate crisis is a planetary-wide threat that endangers our very existence, and some groups, socially and economically disadvantaged ones, face the greatest risk. This is because of where they live, their health, income, language barriers, and limited access to resources. And in the US, these more vulnerable community and people are largely Black and Brown. They are immigrants, low income, children, pregnant women, people with disabilities, and people for whom English is not their native language. And as more time goes by, they will suffer the worst impacts of climate change unless we recognize that fighting climate change and the injustices, racial, social, and environmental, are inextricably linked. I often hear definitions for climate justice and environmental justice being used interchangeably. And then could go to the next slide, please. So I hope you'll indulge me while I'll just take a couple of minutes to share my definitions and why I think it's important to understand the difference. There is a difference between the two. Next slide, please. I start with the EPA definition of environmental justice, which is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development and implementation and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. It's pretty cut and dry, not much there to interpret. The next slide, please. This is a definition of climate justice, which has been adapted from the Mary Robinson Foundation. Climate justice links human rights and development to achieve a human-centered approach to safeguard the rights of the most vulnerable people while sharing the burdens and benefits of climate change and its resolution equitably and fairly. Climate justice is informed by science. It responds to science and acknowledges the need for equitable stewardship of the world's resources. I like to view climate justice as environmental justice 2.0. It builds on the foundation of fair treatment and meaningful involvement, and then pushes that concept to the next level. Climate justice is a movement, a living concept. Climate justice strives to have the inequities addressed head on and through long-term climate mitigation and adaptation strategies and systems change. It's not about just fixing historical wrongs, but ensuring that those inequities will never happen again. Next slide, please. There's a couple of principles that I've had here to help us create guidelines and develop a framework in which to do our justice work. And they include things like respecting and protecting human rights. Now, I have to apologize up front. I don't have the time to go into the detail that I would love to be able to share with you because I get very excited about this kind of work, but it's here and I will provide you with some links so that you can actually go back and take a deeper dive. So again, respect and protect human rights, support the right to development, share benefits and burdens equitably, ensure that the decisions on climate change are participatory, transparent, and accountable, again, bringing all the people to the table. Highlight gender equity and harness the transformative power of education for climate stewardship. Use effective partnerships to secure climate justice. Now, if you have the opportunity, I would strongly recommend looking at the Mary Robinson Foundation website, where all of the principles are listed, and there's 9 in total, along with a great number, just a really fantastic resources on climate justice. Next slide, please. So a little bit about ecoAmerica. Our mission is to build institutional leadership, public support, and political will for climate solutions in the United States. And we do that by working in 3 very distinct sectors: faith, health, and local communities. And we partner with national institutions and associations, empowering their visible national leadership, stakeholder engagement, and climate advocacy, including work like committing to 100% clean energy. We empower climate leadership through national programs, deep research, guides, and resources like talking points and ambassador training programs, and even a national convening. Our American Climate Leadership Summit is happening in March of 2022, and we use that as an opportunity to share information and collaborate on ways to expand and catalyze diverse climate action and advocacy. Next slide, please. So my program, the Path to Positive Communities program of ecoAmerica, is a growing body of diverse community leaders and organizations across the US, united to advance local climate solutions. And we do that through empowering local and regional leaders and elevating the benefits that climate solutions bring to people and their communities. We hope to inspire civic leaders and residents to support solutions at a local, regional, and national level. And we do this in a number of ways. As I mentioned already, we do have the American Climate Leadership Program, and we love to bring and convene leaders from across the country to elevate their visible leadership in that sort of forum. We also have community and climate forums. We conduct research on attitudes and awareness levels of Americans on the issue of climate change. And we issue guidance for communicating about community and climate that is accessible and motivating. And we provide educational opportunities and model climate conversations in many different contexts through our ambassador programs and our Let's Talk Climate webcast series. We also provide a number of other resources to help anyone take action on climate at home, in the workplace, and in community. And it's things like our Moving Forward Guide and our climate action sheets. You can find out more about us and all of these tools and resources, which are all free for the taking, at pathtopositive.org. The earliest iteration of our programming really focused on influencing leadership, council members, mayors, governors, politicians. However, what we discovered was that elected officials aren't in office for very long, and you develop a relationship with one and then poof, 4 years later, they were gone and they move on. Their agendas are also often tied to political priorities, which may or may not be in favor of climate solutions. So to leverage our resources effectively, we created a strategy for reaching individual stakeholders with messaging and tools to help build that public support from the ground up. Path to Positive has resources that underscore what citizens need to know about climate solution and the best way to advocate for these actions with their elected leaders. So basically what we are doing is we are influencing from the ground up. We're taking that one person who's got one vote and we're combining them with hopefully tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, and we are making our voices known in a chorus of voices. We also know that the advancement of climate action happens where the rubber meets the road in local communities. Sustained local action and advocacy provide inspiration and success stories for other communities and federal policymakers to bolster their efforts to pass and implement climate solutions. The good news is that organizations, private and public, nonprofit and government, and communities across the US now seek to take effective action on climate change. And most people know and are very concerned about climate change. It's a matter of fact, our latest research indicates that 79% of Americans consider it to be a big issue, a concerning issue. Next slide, please. At ecoAmerica, we have local action national purpose focus, and that's really aimed at helping our partners to engage state and local affiliates and members in climate action and advocacy, again, at that personal, the workplace, community, and policy levels. We have developed new initiatives, including leadership circles, and then pilot initiatives like micro grants and an emphasis of working in key voting districts with measurable potential to increase local and federal support on climate action. We have also expanded support for current initiatives, including things like our Climate Ambassador Training Program and our tools, resources, and communication. Our main goal is to empower our local and regional community leaders towards greater ambition to reduce climate pollution, restore nature and communities, and address the systemic injustices that center inclusion, diversity, and equity in all climate action. Next slide, please. And actually, we can keep going because I've already talked to that slide. Great. Communication and engagement. It's been challenging, and for most people, climate change is an abstract subject tainted with divisive politics. And we hear bits of guidance such as getting the message and the messenger right. And to some, this means having a scientist explain science, right? While to others, it may mean having faith leaders talk about climate to the faithful, really focusing on the idea of God's work and our being stewards of creation. But there is so much more to it than that. The truth is that we can all speak effectively on climate change. Americans know that the climate around them is changing, and they are overtly or sometimes latently concerned, and they want information and solutions that instill confidence and are consistent with their values and beliefs. And if we truly understand and connect with Americans, then we can provide them with answers that build support and solutions that they in turn can share with their networks. The process is as important as the content. And even if you have all of your facts down cold, people won't necessarily listen, understand, remember, and certainly not act. You need to understand and relate to them to be heard. And through our research and real life experience from ecoAmerica and our partners, we know that this framework works with any audience. So the targeted universalism framework is the focus that I use. When I started working at ecoAmerica, I was delighted to discover that targeted universalism was interwoven into the very fabric of our training program. And what it means really is setting universal goals and providing targeted processes to achieve those goals. I want to share kind of like a specific flow for creating and delivering successful climate change solutions. This is a process that we have given to thousands of partners and ambassadors to resonate with their audience. And I've included 10 steps here that we work with our community partners to craft emotionally resonant, personalized, and effective messages on climate change. And the first is really to start with people and stay with people. If there's one thing that I hope to impart in our time together, it is this. If you want your audience, whomever they are, be it your grandmother, colleagues, or a room full of professionals, to care about climate change, then care about them. It starts with their perspective, not yours. Infuse your entire communication with tangible and relevant concerns. Move from people to climate and not the other way around. And once you figure that out, just keep going back to working with the people. Now, I want to take a moment, and I'm trying to be very aware of time, so forgive me if I kind of pound through some of this, but I want to make sure that I share as much of this as I can with you for our discussion together. But I want to take a moment to describe a really great example of this that we found worked super well here in Milwaukee in the 30th Street corridor. Milwaukee is on Lake Michigan, and the city of Milwaukee was built on what is the equivalent of rice fields. So our water table is very, very high. It's pretty much just under the surface. And what we wanted to do as a result of that, when we get major storms, we get major flooding in homes, particularly in the central city. The city of Milwaukee and our sewage district was concerned about the 30th Street corridor because of the amount of flooding that was happening on a regular basis. These century storms have become annual storms practically. And as a result, the property owners weren't recovering quickly from flooding in their neighborhood and in their community. Also, it was costing the city millions of dollars in cleanup. So what they wound up doing was actually going to the community and hosting charrettes and conversations, town hall meetings to discuss the needs of the community. While their focus was definitely on climate and flooding, they wanted to hear what the actual community members thought was going on. They also started the conversation by talking about flooding, talking about that immediate need. And what that did was it created trust, and it created their concerns, the concerns of the community were the same concerns as the city, and the same concerns as the sewage district. And as a result of that, they were able to work together to really develop a very strong green infrastructure project, something that's very large. They were able to remove several hundred homes from the area to build a green infrastructure system that has greatly reduced the amount of flooding in the community. Now, along with that, the community was also looking for a few other things, and they wound up getting hiking trails and biking trails. They wound up with community gardens around the edge of the green infrastructure projects. There was a lot of transportation opportunities there, and the project itself, while it addressed the need that the city had, it also took into account everyone that committed to the process and committed to contributing their ideas. And really, it was a great success. So that's one example. Unfortunately, I can only go through this really quickly again, but let me just, I wanna see if we can touch base on the rest of these. Okay, so connecting on common values. If you really understand your audience's priorities, concerns, and values, you can open their hearts and minds by talking about those values and showing them that you share and honor them. Common values such as family, community, choice and freedom, health, fairness are powerful motivators and connectors. Affiliation and tribal connectors, such as being a part of a congregation or being a business leader or an organizational membership, is very helpful with having these conversations. Acknowledge ambivalence. People approach climate from different perspectives and have different levels of concern, and we all have other priorities. I've found that setting aside self-righteousness and respecting perspectives, allowing everyone to be in their own space, a simple line like some of us are more worried about climate change than others, allows people to be very comfortable and to listen with an open mind. Making it real. Many Americans are concerned about climate change. I've said that a number of times. We need to move them from concern to action. And we can do that by focusing on local realities that they can see with their own eyes. Simple, irrefutable facts about the changing seasons or local fauna or record weather. You can make climate change very relevant for them. Assume the realities, don't argue with the science, and use a light hand with one or two examples, and then pivot quickly to solutions. And that brings me to the next one, emphasize solutions. Many people don't yet realize that we've developed solar and wind energy systems that cost a lot less than even cheap natural gas. And transportation and energy storage systems are just around the corner. We have proven policies that will reduce carbon pollution while accelerating economic growth. And there's a suite of economic, health, nature, and security co-benefits that come along with those energy solutions. Making a powerful case with tangible examples that show that real solutions are here and now will inspire your audience. Next slide, please. Six, we want to inspire and empower. And Americans are repeatedly told, due to all sorts of other influences, that they can't really make a difference on climate change. So why try? And when really the exact opposite is true. Every person, every day, almost everything that you do, from the way that you drive to what you eat and how you talk about climate change, impacts the problem and the people around you. We can lead on climate solutions, and so can your state, your town, your family, and you. The next one is focusing on personal benefits. We burn good money on things that can be used for vacation and education, healthier food, or bigger savings accounts. Most Americans actually think that action on climate change comes with a cost to their lifestyles and pocketbooks. And again, I'd say the opposite is true. We save money by saving energy and are healthier with active transportation and better food. We should always emphasize the personal benefits of climate solutions. Your audience will take note of that. We always recommend ending with an ACTS. Empower your audience. Encourage them to turn the information that they're given and the understanding that they receive into action. And give them examples, ideas, and steps that they can do to make a difference. And remind and show them how behavior change is easier and cheaper than they think. Sequence really matters. We've found that research reveals that you can take the same set of 6 facts and arrange them in different ways and end up with very different results. So we suggest connecting on common values, acknowledge ambivalence, then move from impacts to solutions and focus on personal benefits. If you start negative and impersonal, it is really hard to get back to the positive, the personal, and the relevant. And so we recommend following those first 8 steps in order. Also, describe and don't label. Use the language of your audience and not your own. Jargon and labels confuse people. I am so guilty of using terms like mitigation and adaptation, which are common in my industry and in my sector. But statements like we need to slow and stop pollution that is changing our climate and prepare for those changes we can't prevent are so much clearer and easier. So rather than alternative energy, we say we need clean and inexpensive energy from the wind and sun. The most persuasive language is vivid and familiar and descriptive. One other thing to consider, use stories that strengthen engagement. Stories help make your message relevant and vivid, and they connect with audiences and allow you to build bonds, enhance empathy, and open people to new perspectives. So next slide, please. Okay, so we've talked about defining climate and environmental justice, frameworks for doing the work, and communication strategy. This is all good stuff. But the work to integrate this path into your daily work really starts with you. And I would suggest building climate literacy. And this is a shameless plug to an audience that's pretty much preaching to the choir. But ecoAmerica and the New Path Positive Communities is launching an online climate ambassador training program, and it's free to join. All you have to do is sign up on our website. It starts in January. We support the local community and civic leaders with training on links between climate, people, and our communities. We provide a spectrum of solutions, speaking effectively on the topic, opportunities to act and advocate. This training equips leaders and community advocates with the knowledge and hands-on experience and resources to speak and act confidently on climate change and solutions. We also recommend finding a spectrum of audiences from friends and family, congregations, professions, local community, um, and of course, policymakers to share your perspective and concerns and invite them to join you in action. Climate advocacy involves a spectrum of activities from volunteering to internships and creating your own website or videos. Any number of undertakings would be appropriate at any level of advocating, whether you are just getting started or you're a seasoned professional. So I want to thank you for your time and attention. And can we go to the next slide? I have left my contact information here. If you have time or you have questions, or if you're interested in partnering or starting up with an online ambassador class, all you have to do is just give me a jingle and I'm happy to connect with you and talk to you about your thoughts and ideas. Thank you.